Hi everyone. In today's session, we are going to learn about how to create build pipelines in Azure Devops. Guys, in order to build and deploy your application into Azure, there are two steps. First, you should have build pipelines in order to build your project and produce the build artifacts, that is binaries. Okay, and the second part comes as the deployment process, where you should make use of the release pipelines in order to deploy your build artifacts into Azure App Services or Azure resources. Okay, so let's start with the first step, that is build pipelines. So let's create a Azure build pipeline in order to build a project source code. Okay, so let's click on new pipeline. From the side navigation menu, as you can see, you can locate the pipelines related menu items. Okay, you can select here for creating build pipelines, select pipelines. For release pipelines, click on releases. So first step, pipeline. So I'm already there in the pipelines wizard, so click on new pipeline. Okay, now select the source control tool, okay, or the source control application. So in our case, I'm going with Azure Repos Git, but there are other options like Bitbucket Cloud, GitHub, GitHub Enterprise Server, other Git subversion, Tortoise subversion. Okay, so let's go with the Azure Repos Git. Okay, so click on it. Yeah, the next wizard, we are going to select the repository. I hope I have shown you in one of my previous demo videos how to create an Azure repository. So basically what you have to do, you have to simply select a project that you have on Azure DevOps. Okay, after selecting a project, it will show all the available repositories for that project. So just make a selection from the list item, okay, and go ahead with the repository that you have selected. Okay, okay, the next step comes is the configuration of the pipeline. So what kind of project you are targeting to run on this pipeline? See guys, there are a lot of options available. Do you want to build a ASP.NET framework based application, ASP.NET Core, as well as .NET framework based application, a .NET desktop application, Universal Windows Platform, Xamarin? So if I click on show more, it will show a hell lot of option, okay, in order to build a project of specific type. Okay, so in this configuration section, I'm going to select ASP.NET Core, okay, for my example. Okay, the fourth and the final step is we have to review our pipeline. So basically an YML file will be presented over here, where you have to cross verify whatever configuration till now you have made. Okay, so basically it contains a skeleton of the pipeline. Basically this pipeline has a skeleton now. Okay, it has which source control you want to connect to. Then you, from that source control, you will select the project, and inside the project you will make selection of repository. Okay, so after making the repository selection, you will configure which kind of framework you are targeting this Azure pipeline to run. Okay, sorry, to build. Okay, so basically we have selected ASP.NET Core as a target technology against which we are running our source code. Okay, so after all these steps, simply there are two options. You can save and run, so it will save the pipeline and run immediately, or we can go with the option of save. So as this is just skeleton of my pipeline, so it requires some more work. I have to add some additional steps to this pipeline. Guys, I can achieve the same thing using YAML. I can insert the .NET Core's clean, okay, the .NET Core's build targets like clean, restore, build, everything in this YML only or YML only. But the best practice is that Azure DevOps provides a nice and beautiful designer to design a build pipeline. So I will make use of that in a short. So simply click on save and save this pipeline. Okay. once you save the pipeline, okay, the pipeline will be created. Okay, so I have renamed it. It was created with the name Azure-pipelines.yml, but I have renamed it to XYZ project for demonstration purpose. So we had selected SonarCube sample project for demonstration purpose, and the branch was master by default. Okay guys, so I have added some tasks here. Okay, see, for the .NET Core, in order to run my project using .NET Core framework, okay, I need to add the .NET Core tasks, the .NET tasks. Okay guys, so I'll show you in the short how to add that. So the initial configuration looks like this. This is our pipeline, a build pipeline. It has get sources, a repository has been configured. Okay, there is an agent job associated with it. Okay, it runs on agent, it's a Windows agent. And then we have the tasks: .NET restore, .NET custom, .NET build, and copy files to artifact staging directory. Okay, this is the directory where the build, the output of the build, that is the binaries, the DLLs or EXEs will be pasted into, and the .NET push in order to push the, yep, in order to push our any NuGet packages that created by this build. Okay, if most of the times what happens is, if we have created some libraries in our .NET Core application, okay, all those library, if we have configured in Visual Studio or in project settings that we want to create a NuGet package for that, then in those scenarios the .NET Core framework will create NuGet packages for us. Okay, and those new pkg files, if we want to push to a NuGet feed on Azure DevOps, we can achieve that using the .NET push command. Okay, so let's review the pipeline once again. Well, in the get sources section, as while creating the pipeline itself, we selected Azure repos git. Okay, Azure repository git as our project source or source code source. Okay, now team project, the project you had selected, and then comes the repository that you have selected. Okay, so I have selected a SonarCube sample repository, and the target branch is master. But usually if you're setting up a build pipeline for your enterprise applications, okay, usually you will create pipelines for your development environment first. In those scenarios, this branch should point to the development branch or equivalent. Okay guys, it should not directly point to the master, but just for the demonstration purpose I have selected master here. Okay, that's great. And there are some other options that you can configure with the repositories section or get sources section, like tagging the sources, reporting the build status. Okay, these are the additional features you can configure while configuring the sources. Okay, the next step, okay, I forgot to mention the first part, that is the pipeline, the build pipeline. See guys, the name is XYZ project. Okay, agent pool, it's a Azure pipelines. Okay, an agent will be picked from the Azure pools. There are some other options available. Okay, and agent specification is Windows 2019, the default one I have selected here. Okay, but we can see what are the all other available options. See, we have the Ubuntu, we have Mac OS, VS 2017. Let's go with the Windows 2019 default here. Now move on to the agent job specifications. Okay, the agent job configuration, the display name is as it is, agent job 1, and agent pool, inherit from the pipeline. So this particular setting I have inherited from the pipeline, and that is the default, and most of the time we go with that default. Okay, and then comes your execution plan. Parallelism, there is none. Okay, but we can make the options, we can select some options like multi-configuration, multi-agents, like that. And there's a timeout option provided. If you click on this, specifies the maximum time in minutes. Okay, and deployment is allowed to execute on an agent before being cancelled by the server. Duration is measured after the pre-approval is completed and before the post-approval is requested. A 0 will cause the timeout for the parent pipeline to be used. Okay. There are some informational icons have been provided. We can go through that. They will provide more information about each and every setting. Okay. See, the job cancel timeout has been set to 1. Dependencies, okay, an option of select dependencies has been selected over here, and additional options like allow scripts to access the OAuth token. These are the additional options you can select as per your project requirements. Okay, for this demonstration purpose I have selected that's the default one. Okay, so next move on to the next task, that's the .NET restore. Okay, in case of .NET Restore, guys, .NET Restore is a .NET Core Frameworks command. Okay, so if you see, I have given a display name as .NET Restore, and in the command drop down, you can see that what are the available options for us. See, we have build, we have get push, pack, publish, restore, run, test, custom. Okay, all these commands are available in our command prompt of the .NET Core Framework. Okay, you can execute all these commands on your local machine also. Okay, so what is the first task? I would like to restore all my nugget dependencies of my project. All the nugget packages will be restored before I start the build process, and that makes sense also because before starting the build you should have all your dependencies in place. Okay, so that's it. The .NET Restore command has been set to .NET Restore path to the project. Okay, I have mentioned the path to my project using the build pipeline variables. Guys, this is a very good practice because you can straight away hard code your project related information over here, but if some changes happens to your project name, okay, again you have to come and change straight away in this text box. But in order to avoid that and in order to reuse that project name in multiple places, you can make use of the build pipeline variables. Okay, you just go to the variable section, change the project's name if the project name changes in future. If you make the change to the project, the build project name variable in the variable section, then you can make use of this variable in all of the places, in all tasks of your build pipeline. Okay, so it's just a one place where you will define your project related information, and that will be used across your pipeline tasks. Okay, so this is the best practice we have to follow. Okay, and then comes feeds and authentication. Okay, I have already shown how to create a nugget feed on Azure Devops. Okay guys, so if your project dependencies have been pushed to your nugget feed in your Azure DevOps, then simply select the option feeds. I select here. Okay, and I have selected a feed called mylib. So this feed is basically a nugget repository kind of, which will contain all the framework libraries like ASP.NET Core related framework libraries or third-party libraries, whatever your project is using will be pushed over here. So from this artifact, from nugget feed, we will access this build pipeline, will access its dependencies and it will build our project. Okay, two options have been provided. So I have given an option of feeds. I select here, that is mylib, but there's one more option called feeds in my nugget.config. If you have worked with nugget based library management, we have an option to provide nugget.config at the solution level, at the project level, CS project level. So if you select this option, it will automatically search for the nugget.config in your CS project or in your solution. Okay, it will locate the CS projects files, and if there is any nugget.config has been provided, then it will make use of nugget.config to locate the Azure artifacts feed. Okay guys, so that's it in the .NET Restore section. Okay, and also I have taken use packages from nugget.org. If there are some packages which are not in your feed, in those scenarios it will access those packages straight away from the nugget.org. Okay, well, the next task is .NET Custom. Basically I have used this to clean the clean the workspace folder before we start the build process, guys. Okay, so if you see here, I have used the .NET custom display name, and the command that I have selected is custom here. So part to my project, I have mentioned the project where I would like to run this clean command. So what is the use of .NET Clean? Basically, .NET Clean will clean all the libraries which have already built. Okay, so if you have if you have debugged your project, or if you have run your project previously using these pipelines, okay, all those artifacts will be located in the your project folder itself. So what is the best practice? Before starting a new build, always clean your workspace or your solution, okay, using the custom command that's called clean, and then you start with the build process. So basically this configuration simply does a clean operation. And what argument I have mentioned? I have mentioned a configuration here. If you see, if you run a .NET Core or .NET Framework project using the command line, most of the time you will specify the configuration, whether you want to build using debug configuration or with the release configuration. If you are using Microsoft Visual Studio, you will be presented with a drop down from the top where you can make selection of whether you would like to build your project in a debug mode or release mode. So basically I have kept my build configuration in a build configuration variable, and I have set the value to debug or release in this variable. So advantage of using variable, once again, it will be set in one place and it can be utilized in multiple tasks. Okay, so here we are cleaning our workspace or our solution or our CS project folder. The most important step is the .NET build. Okay, in this .NET build task, what I am doing is I have selected the command as build, and I have mentioned the path to my projects. If you click on this information, see, it says that the path to the CS project files to use. You can use wildcards. For example, if you use */star.cs project, it will automatically locate all .cs project files in the subfolders and it will build for you. Isn't that easy? Okay, so you can make use of the wildcard patterns over here to build your projects. Okay, so in my case, I have just created variables to my project source code folder, or the path to my CS project files, okay, in my repository. So basically I have the root folder name, that's the build folder name, and then the build folder project name. Okay, so build folder name will contain a folder or the CS project folder, say XYZ folder. Inside that I have xyz.cs project. So that I have achieved using this variables. Okay, and once again, arguments, I have mentioned hyphen configuration, which is a .NET flag while building. Okay, so hyphen configuration, I have mentioned using build this project using the provided build configuration in my variable. Okay, and also I have mentioned an option of no restore. So while building, don't restore anything because restore has been happened in the first step itself, so don't do a restore over here. One more point I would like to highlight here, in the advanced section, guys, we have an option to set the working directory also. Okay, this will be useful when you are running your custom built scripts. Maybe you would have written some PowerShell scripts or batch files. Okay, if you want to run those, mention the working directory so that those will be picked from this particular folder. Seen very rare usage of this, but if you are using such things, you need to mention the working directory here. Okay, okay, the next step is copy files. Okay guys, copy files is nothing but publishing our artifacts into some folder. Okay, so what I have done here is I've given a name as copy files to a system variable called build.artifact staging directory. Guys, this is the DevOps provided default location where our build artifacts will be put. Okay, so source folder I have mentioned as build.source directory. Okay, source folder is nothing but the place where our source code files will be there, or source CS project files will be there. So in order to get more information, we can check the information, the source folder that the copy patterns will be run from. Okay, that's my bad. Okay, yeah, basically this folder mentions from where we have to pick our artifacts. Okay, this is the copy files task. So what it does is simply gets the files from the source folder and puts into a destination or the target folder. Okay, so the source folder, I have made use of the system provided source directory variable. Okay, well, yeah. So in the source folder, I have mentioned the source directory where our debug or release folder will be created once the .NET build command runs. Okay, so that is my source directory, and I'm mentioning what type of content we are picking while pasting to the target folder or copying to the target folder. I have mentioned as go to the DLL. Okay, first thing, I have a variable called build project root folder, that is root folder of my project nodes. Okay, so now there I'm mentioning that go to the DLL folder. Inside DLL folder, go to the net core folder, and from there pick only star.new pkg, the nugget package file only. I don't want DLL straight away. I don't want any exes. Instead, I want a new pkg file, okay, which is a library, and simply put it into the build.artifact staging directory. Okay, so once a successful build happens, I can see that when I visit my artifact staging directory, my new pkg files, my library files will be available there. These are the nugget package files, guys. Okay. Well, under advanced panel for the copy files task, we have options like clean target folder before copying, overwrite, flatten folders, or preserve target timestamps. You can go through all these steps, but most of the time, the best practice is always select this clean target folders before copying, so that you will not end up in getting some content not being properly copied to the target. Okay, delete everything from the target and then perform the copy operation. Okay, or you have the option to overwrite also, so you can straight away overwrite an existing content also. Okay, so that's it for copy files task, and the final one is the .NET publish. Well, .NET push command basically pushes, okay, any new pkg files or nugget package files to the Azure artifacts feed or to the .NET org, also the, sorry, to the nugget.org. Okay, so if you see the configuration here, okay, this is a .NET push, the task name is the .NET push, and the command I'm using is nugget push. Okay, so how Azure Devops pipeline will execute this command is .NET nugget push, and then I'm mentioning the path. Okay, I'm mentioning the path to my .new pkg file. Okay, so where it is located, see, previous step in the copy file step, I copied my new pkg file into build.artifact staging directory. Okay, this is the default location provided by Azure DevOps. So now I'm telling my .NET push task to go to the build.artifact staging directory, then inside build project root folder, go to the DLL, go to the netcore folder and pick all the star.new pkg files. Okay, so it will pick all new pkg files and put it into a target feed called mylib. Okay, this is the nugget feed I have created on Azure DevOps of my project. Okay, so two options have been provided here. I have selected this organization or collection. This organization means in my Azure DevOps project, I have created a mylib named nugget feed. But if you want to publish these artifacts to an external nugget server like nugget.org, you can use this option and provide all the necessary information over there. So I selected external nugget server, so it is asking for the nugget server's URL. Okay, so you need to provide all necessary information here in order to push it to an external server. Okay, that is good. And also there is one advanced option called publish pipeline metadata. Okay, this is the default. By default this is checked for the nugget push command, so I have gone with the default value and I have selected it. Okay, the publish pipeline metadata has been checked. So associate this build release pipelines metadata. Okay, that is source code information with package. Now, if you want to configure some additional tasks in your build pipeline, guys, simply click on this plus icon. The moment you click on plus icon, you will get a pane over here, okay, add tasks pane or panel. From here, you can select whatever additional task you would like to add, okay. Now, I have made use of .NET Core task in order to configure my build pipeline to restore, clean, build, and publish packages to the feeds. Okay, but if you have some additional requirements, then you can go for some other tasks like install Azure Function Core tools, Artifactory, .NET Core, deploy entity framework core migrations. Like, there are a lot of options provided by Microsoft to achieve the desired functionalities. Okay, see, in case of the .NET framework, if you are developing a .NET framework based project, then you can perform all nugget based operations using this NuGet task. Okay, and in order to deploy an Azure app service, you can make use of Azure app service deploy. Okay, simply click on add. The task will be added in your pipeline. Azure pipelines tasks are not only limited to the Microsoft .NET framework, guys. If you have a node project like Angular or React, guys, you have a flexibility to add npm commands also in your build pipeline. You can see here I have given a search criteria of npm, and you can see I got a npm task. The way I configured a .NET task, in the same way you can configure a npm task. Like, you can install npm packages, publish npm packages, run the npm application like Angular applications using these npm tasks. Okay, so we are done with configuring a build pipeline. So what is the final step, guys? Pretty simple. Save and queue. The moment you make save and queue, your pipeline will run and it will give a status after a successful completion. Okay, if everything is right, it will go green. If you have made any mistakes in your source code or configuration, the build pipeline will fail. Okay, so when you run a pipeline and click on the pipelines link from the side navigation bar, guys, you can see the status of your build pipeline. See, for this first pipeline, Azure Synapse SQL pools, there are no runs yet. They have not run the pipeline itself. For the second one, you can see that this particular pipeline has failed due to some reason. Okay, and as you see, the third pipeline, which has gone green. Okay, so it has executed without any errors. So that's it for today, guys. So I have explained how to create a build pipeline on Azure Devops. Okay, after creating a build pipeline, how to configure a build pipeline with various steps. Okay, I have made an example for the the .NET Core project. Okay, so what sequence of steps we need to add in order to properly restore all the dependency of a .NET Core project by downloading the Nugget libraries, and then cleaning the project, and then building the project, and then publishing the artifacts produced by the source code. Okay, so that's it for today. In the next session, I will explain how to create a release pipeline in order to deploy the artifacts produced by a build pipeline. Okay, guys, so that's it for the day. We'll meet again.